This is Infection, the survival podcast, recorded live on Tuesday, March the 8th, 2022, episode 373. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to another edition of Infection, the survival podcast. Infection is your source for the latest information on survival video games. My name is Nick Craig. You can check out my daily political antics by visiting my website, nickcraig.com. And of course, if you miss any portion of this illustrious program, you can visit infectionpodcast.com. Of course, not on this journey alone. Joining me as he does each and every week, the man who put the I in the state of Boise, Brian with an I, Aldridge. Hello, Brian.
Hello, how are you? And
I'm doing wonderful.
Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well.
Sir.
Let's go ahead and get some contact info out of the way really quick. At Brian Aldridge on Gab and Parler and Getter and who knows, Truth Social as soon as they allow registrations again. And if you want to find my blog, biteoftech.com. But of course, go to our website, go to infectionpodcast.com and jump on the Discord server on the right-hand side. It's a free app. They have a mobile-based for phones, all kinds of devices, a web-based app, so you don't even have to install anything if you don't want to, and your desktop app. So all free for the most part. They do have some things you can pitch money at them for, but a very nice service as long as they keep us on there. And then we have on there the Twitch, YouTube, BitChute, and DLive links if you want to watch the live show. Some of those are also after the fact recording, so you could catch it on whatever service is most convenient for you. And then the audio-only versions at the lower right. So whatever device platform you want to use, if you want to listen on a mobile device or even on a desktop app, you can do that through those links. And then if you are going to listen, I really encourage you to go to the particular episode you're going to listen to because there's links for each topic that we discuss. So if there's maybe a document or a video or whatever it is that we're going to be referring to throughout that discussion, there's a link to it in there. And then there's also a built-in video and audio player if you want to use that page. If you want to support us, there's a support option right up top, or you can go to infectionpodcast.com/support through Prime Gaming subs, Humble Bundle, Subscribe Star, just a lot of ways that you can support the show, and that's the way you can do it. So,
yes, sir. Absolutely. We appreciate that. And
Bingo, boom, shakalaka.
UGX Vibe hitting us up with the resubscription, 49 months, saying, can you guys fix the gas prices for us? No, but I'll tell you what. It's funny because based on our name, Infection, we often receive follows on Twitter from groups and from different individuals that are looking for survival, like literally. Infectious diseases.
Or survival.
Survival. And, Brian, we might have to change it from the video game podcast to how to survive the world with the Bidenflation that's going on, terrible gas prices, awful foreign policy, and all of the other great things that this illustrious president is doing. So maybe that's where we change the direction of the show. Thanks for the support, Bob. Greatly appreciated. To answer your question, can you? No, we can't. Just ask the press secretary. She's got all the answers. So we've got a lot of.
Back to that.
Yeah, sure. We'll circle back to it towards the end of the program. We've got a lot of interesting news here, Brian. I want to start off with this. It should be a quick discussion. Indie music has been something that has been popular for quite some time, obviously, with the invention of the internet, no longer the need to press a CD or press a vinyl record or even, do a mass production of cassette tapes or 8-tracks. It's allowed individuals to create music and profit. And one of those websites, and it's been around forever, is a site called Bandcamp, which is a place that people can upload. And there's a whole bunch of things on there. It goes from full-length albums to kind of parody songs that people sell for, or parody albums, comedy albums that people sell for various prices. I mean, you can get stuff that's super, super cheap. And an interesting acquisition, Epic Games has bought out Bandcamp and says that they are going to be continuing to push forward on a fair and open platform and say that fair and open platforms are critical. And Bandcamp is one of those fair and, I've never used it, to be honest with you, but from everything I understand, it does appear to be a very open platform. I've seen and heard some very interesting I've seen some very interesting things that have made their way onto Bandcamp that tend to be a little out there, and those things seem to be well viewed and whatnot on there. So it's interesting to note that. Go ahead.
my first podcast I was really a part of was on an indie radio station. So it just kind of, I mean, they had a lot of this kind of music, all kinds of different royalty free music, but then a lot that people that wanted to get their name out there were putting all this indie music on. One
Yeah.
thing here, the fees that they do, this I think the thing that's really pushing them towards this is something where the artist gets a majority of the profits or
Yeah,
their
it's a
label.
very
And
small
so here,
portion that they hold.
on average, it's 82% of the money goes either to the artist or the label,
Mm.
and typically within 24 to 48 hours. So it's not like a month rolling cycle. The remainder covers the revenue share and the payment processor fees. So the payment fees is a pretty small portion of that, and then there's the rest of it is the Bandcamp share, and after that it's the artist label share. I wonder if they're going to change this at all. And do you think this is kind of preparing them for maybe the metaverse? I'm kind of thinking the metaverse, because they're trying to come up with something where people go in and treat it like a real world, right? Well, if you're an artist and they create a place where people can kind of showcase, go online and perform for people, kind of like Twitch, but in a real environment where they maybe go up on stage and it's how artists get discovered, that would be a form of the metaverse, right? Creating a fake world where people can go to concerts and do things like that, and artists can get discovered, and they create a platform for that. I'm trying to figure out the direction they're going, and unless they're planning on using this for getting better prices and getting music into games, but that just see it
No,
doesn't seem like a good reasonable path. I think it has to do with something else.
yeah, I would say the same thing. It is important to note that Epic, or rather the Bandcamp, is going to continue to run completely independent, I should say, from Epic. They will have the Epic branding, and of course they'll get access to, I'm sure, some of the Epic backend and cloud infrastructure and things like that. My first impression when I saw the headline, which was a couple of days ago, or actually late last week, was, oh yeah, this is going to be for them to offer cheaper music for video games. But that just doesn't seem to be a market that makes sense for Epic. I don't think it's a big enough market. There's already so much music out there for video games.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what it is at all. But it's interesting to note that Epic's announcement didn't include the word metaverse. Tim Sweeney saying that he's tired of looking for and trying to find out the direct meaning of that word. But I have a strong suspicion that this is going to be part of whatever. And by the way, I think that term is beyond stupid too. I think it's going to be something larger than what Epic is doing, or maybe who knows? Was Bandcamp searching around to be acquired? I mean, that's that we often think
they might have offered it at a reasonable price.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's
and
websites.
They didn't want to go to someone who would change the platform. They didn't want someone who would make a more closed system.
Yeah, and it's interesting to when we often think about acquisitions, we think Epic approves Bandcamp. We're assuming Epic reached out to Bandcamp and said, "Hey, we want to buy you," and that might have been what happened. But you can also there's websites now, Brian, where you can search up. It's I don't remember what it is. I've looked at it before, where you can buy businesses like locally. You put in your address or you put in your city, your town, and you'll find, oh, there's a restaurant for sale, there's a pizzeria for sale, dry cleaning business. Bandcamp could have been kind of deciding, hey, we need the bigger backing of a larger company. Let's start shopping around and seeing if we can get an offer, or a decent offer from somebody, and that could have been it too. I really don't think that the solution here is anything related to Fortnite or Unreal Engine or video games. I'm sure there will be a component. I'm sure they might offer better royalties for people that are cheaper music if you purchase it, and then maybe Epic makes up the difference if you use it in an Unreal Engine game. But I don't think that is the end goal. I'm not sure what the end goal is.
Well, hey,
and we don't know how much it costs.
There's another thing that's kind of happening too that there was an announcement on, and that's that their Epic is partnering with Cause, an artist, and Serpentine, I think it's a Serpentine, an artist, to create a first of its kind experience where they're bridging physical and virtual worlds, like creating an art gallery in a virtual world that these artists are presenting their work. That even indicates to me even stronger the possibility this is going to be a place where musicians can promote their work, show their work, and then sell it to you all in the same metaverse, where the Epic makes a cut from the metaverse, right? artist makes the biggest cut, so that it gets people to go in, because the thing will start filling it up itself if people first of all see an opportunity to make money, make themselves famous. Just look at Google Plus. I remember there was an artist, and she started performing on Google Plus. I helped set up her first little concert she did in Google Plus, and she got signed by Gibson Guitars, and
How
she
much did you
toured
make on
with
that?
them. I made zero. I got the I helped her. I was the one who set up all the shared cameras and virtual microphones and all that stuff to make sure that because they didn't have all that stuff built in and she didn't have a way to do it, right? Um,
Well, that
so
worked
I
out
helped
well for
set that
you.
up the first time. Oh yeah, I mean it's something you could say, hey, I helped that person make it. They got noticed because they performed virtually in a hangout that we presented, and there you go, they made it. But that kind of thing for an artist who's trying to make it, that is an opportunity that a smart artist who understands technology a little bit will come in and be like, let's create a virtual rave, where different artists are going from room to room. They could create all kinds of cool things that I think people would be into, as long as you gave them things to do and you gave the people that are going to be giving the presentations a way to make it valuable to them, money, right? Because people are only going to go out there and perform legitimately for free for so long, and they're not just going to go out on the corner and provide free entertainment like they do, unless there's something for them to throw money at.
Yeah, precisely. So we
So
don't know.
I think this is all the metaverse. It seems
Yeah.
so separate, but it really ties into the rest of the stuff I think they're aiming for.
Yeah, there is definitely some tie in here. We don't know how much they spent on it. I would presume it was a pretty decent chunk of change as late as 2018. Bandcamp had been growing at a pretty astronomical rate. It is, of course, a private company, so we're not exactly sure what they make profit wise, but they've got hundreds of thousands of artists on that platform. So presumably they paid a pretty penny for it. And I guess now we just wait and see now. But for what it seems, and completely independent, no changes, just maybe some Epic back-end infrastructure and maybe some, deals for game makers with the Unreal Engine, some, 50,
I think they'll kind of bring it in their
like
little universe, because eventually, I bet you the next thing they do is they'll come up with, they already own ArtStation, right?
Yes.
If you look at the purchases they've been doing, ArtStation is the picture version of this. This is the audio version of that. These purchases are them grabbing up places where artists and creators can show their content.
Well,
right?
It's an interesting thing that you mentioned, Brian, because there is a big push away from, I don't know exactly how to describe it. There's this, indie is not something that is new. Indie has been a thing for a long time. Everybody knows what indie is, back and forth. We know what indie is. But there's been this big push as of late, especially when you get into things like the current push in cryptocurrency and NFTs and things of that nature, where you've got a lot of this indie stuff that is being sold and marketed. And, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I understand any of it at all or am actively involved in it. But same way that Microsoft kind of was sowing these relationships with some of these companies like Bethesda years before they really pushed into their full streaming platform, I have a strong suspicion that Epic is making these acquisitions now, might not even knowing exactly what they're doing with them, but saying there's going to be something here in the future, and when it does pop off, we are going to have the tools and the companies to be the number one player in that space.
And the people.
And
these are hubs of
exactly.
people, right?
Yeah.
Because it seems like it's hubs of people that are giving, selling things, providing things, giving people things to listen to, look at, which is what the metaverse is going to be all about. The supposed putting yourself into an environment where you're immersed. That's what I assume that the real metaverse is going to be, is creating an ultra immersive environment where you can walk around and do all kinds of things. They kind of have similar little services to it right now.
Yeah.
But there's not been one like Facebook of metaverse, because Facebook is the place where everybody went together. It was the universal place that you could pretty much connect with anyone. It's been one of the only things other than Google, for search, Facebook for that. I think that they're hoping to kind of be in front and have enough of those things to where when people are looking for that one to be, they'll be the Facebook of it. They'll just be the one that was first, that had all the stuff there, So people just naturally, that was the one that everybody used. That's the one that the only one that grandma knew existed, right? I think that this is what this is going to be. So I'm interested to see how they're going to pull it off. I don't know, because a lot of these things happen by chance. They can't plan success. Certain things take off, certain things don't. I mean, look at how much Google Plus, we brought that up earlier. Look how much money Google tossed into that and then
Yeah,
rolled it right back up, right? There's no guarantee that just because you have the most money and you have a lot of things that people are going to be interested in it. So I think it's
precisely.
still and there's a lot of companies that are going to be making a big push. Facebook is making a big push for the metaverse. I think it's going to be a kind of a bout with the top players. And who knows if anyone will really take off? Who knows if metaverse will actually be a thing 5 years from now?
Exactly. Yeah. So interesting to note. We'll have a full link to the articles in our show notes on our website, infectionpodcast.com. Brian, I want to turn the conversation to Nvidia. Did we cover a little bit last week? I think we did.
We started, yes.
And this was about
remember the information was stolen, and they were threatening to release it.
So,
well,
a recap. A group of hackers apparently got into some sort of Nvidia production environment or a dev environment and pulled a terabyte worth of data, including drivers and source code, and were threatening Nvidia, hey, we're going to... And of course, this is all because the new 3000 series cards have something in the firmware that is locking down and making it not super efficient to hash crypto with. This, of course, has pissed off the crypto community, and apparently it pissed off enough people because some group has went in and infiltrated Nvidia and stole a whole bunch of data. Now, that's where we were last week, Brian. What happened in the last couple days?
All right. So first, the stolen data is being used to disguise malware as GPU drivers.
Uh-oh.
Because, I mean, they've got officially signed with various NVIDIA codes and all the things to make it look official. And they're able to create driver packs that go a lot farther than you would be comfortable with as far as validating code being signed. So this code signing, this will be interesting with the data that they have. Can they truly do something that's not going to pop up any errors? Now, these certificates can be revoked, but this is a lot of work because this whole thing with signing code is kind of a pain. It's not something that's easy to undo. You have to re-update all your things and put out new certificates.
But hold on a second.
Devalidate this one.
Let me try to understand this. So you create a piece of code and then you can get a certificate, and that the hash is generated based on the code itself. So presumably,
and a private key that you have.
So did they receive the private key?
Well, I'm assuming that's what, I don't know, and that's because I haven't seen. They've got some things that are allowing certain things to pass, but I don't know if they have the actual code signing certificate. That's what I'm waiting to see, because if they have the code signing certificate, they can sign apps that will make a driver install that is signed by NVIDIA, triggering nothing, and then they'll be able to get pretty much hardware level access to your system because it'll be like a driver access.
Now, of course, this is all incumbent on the fact that you would have to download the driver from some place that is not NVIDIA to use it. Obviously, I would say the one good thing about NVIDIA, Brian, is that it is the standard that you go to NVIDIA's website and download drivers. I've never downloaded an NVIDIA driver from a third party. That doesn't mean that with paid
but there's
ads
people
on
that
Google,
especially.
Well,
there's especially people that are looking for old drivers, that maybe for old cards
drivers,
that are looking for a very specific version that doesn't crash with their particular system. If these guys are smart, they'll turn around and start creating custom driver packs for these random and rare drivers that people are always looking for old versions of to work with various operating systems. If they can get into those packs, they'll provide driver sets that are perfectly signed that hundreds of people probably will sit there and install on a regular basis. And unless they can get all of these certificates out, they don't know that there's a problem until it's been extracted, right? Then they can scan the code, but every NVIDIA driver is going to have this sign. So you're going to either devalidate all past drivers from installing in Windows and have to re-sign all the ones that are new, right? That's the only way you're going to get rid of the old driver. It's like an SSL certificate. The website's going to throw an error with an out of date or deactivated SSL certificate. They will not validate it. That's the only way to get rid of it, right? Because it's only doing so many checks back and forth with the provider. It's checking to see, is this certificate valid? Yes. Okay. The only way to get rid of it is to devalidate the certificate.
Interesting.
And that's a lot of software that they've had that on.
Yeah, so hopefully that's not the case, because I think that would create a big issue not only for Nvidia, which I don't particularly care about, but it would have an impact on the consumer and the gaming industry, and that, of course, is where I start to have feelings about it. So I guess Nvidia. And
there are things. One thing I would encourage, though, at the bottom of the article, there is an article on how ways that you can prevent these signed codes from going through. So if you're worried, but just how about you don't go download drivers that aren't from NVIDIA's actual website?
Yeah, and that
would be the best solution.
Yeah, that's the surefire way to do this. Just don't download from easydriverz.com.
PH is saying that they did invalidate that certificate. So you'll probably get a warning now when you install old drivers. They won't install without popping up a notification, most likely. So if they truly devalidate or made it totally dead.
So I guess that answers the question I was going to ask, which was they were kind of given an ultimatum. They were asked to pay.
Yep.
Oh, they weren't asked to pay. They were asked to release drivers that did not have, or not drivers, card firmware that did not have the crypto mining hash stuff disabled. I presume Nvidia did not do that.
They did not deliver them what they wanted. Yeah, they said no.
Okay.
Because I think they've recovered for the most part, and probably, I mean, it's confidential information. Their source code for their various applications, data repositories for some Samsung projects that they're working on. It's just it is a mess, and so I think we're still waiting to see, because they haven't fully disclosed what all information was in there.
Now, normally when we talk about software and companies being hacked or compromised, it's often source code for a video game or something like that. In this aspect, could there possibly be a group, a set of drivers that pop up because the source code is now available, Brian? Could you have people that get this source code and make legitimate NVIDIA working drivers that do specific things? Could this open up like a weird source code driver community for these NVIDIA cars? I'm just thinking, unlike, for example, you hack into for CD Projekt Red and steal the game source files. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Like honestly, who cares? Like what's the big deal? The game is already out. But for this, where you would now have the source code where you could essentially change things to the driver, not in a malicious way, but in a way to boost performance, to turn things off that you don't want. I wonder if you will see that pop up if, in fact, these are leaked out to the broader public and are published for people to make their own not malicious drivers. That could be very interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's something they're going to really have to,
and there's nothing they can do about it.
Be careful. Yeah, because they did say in here, the NVIDIA leak included expired code signing certificates that will still get accepted by Windows, opening a potentially dangerous route for malware. That's the issue. Out-of-date computers. It opens up so many avenues for them to infiltrate and create bots and all kinds of things on systems. That's my biggest concern, because this won't pop up even now, even though they've expired them. You won't get the same errors on a lot of Windows systems or out-of-date systems, ones that don't update. So it's still a problem, but modern up-to-date computers usually will be protected against this. That's why they say go with Windows 10, keep your updates going, because it patches these sort of things. It's going to be these out-of-date computers that are sitting in a office closet somewhere running Windows XP or Windows 7 or something like that, that's never getting updated. And if they can somehow get a driver to trigger there, that's where this becomes an issue.
Yeah.
Right now, who knows? This was Samsung, had a big, have a huge thing. Nvidia. We'll see if this moves forward and they really get anywhere. Maybe this is pretty much the most of it, because it was old certificates, and this stuff does get leaked every once in a while. It's not the end of the world for the product.
Yeah. Well, now we kind of just
I
wait
think
and
they're
see
there.
what comes of it. So that's and there's a lot more details on that. If you want those, you can again head over to our website, infectionpodcast.com. All right, Brian.
Yeah. Do you have a preference where we go
No,
next?
I don't. I will. I'll give you
All
the
right.
shot here.
All right. Well, let's talk. Let's do a few random things here really quick.
Sure.
One thing I wanted to mention to people is Humble Bundle put out a notice here last month or in the last couple of months about shifting away from Mac and Linux support. I've had it in my notes here, but for people that were interested in getting Linux games and getting Mac games, Humble Bundle is no longer doing that. So keep that in mind. They're going to be getting rid of their Mac and Linux section on there and being a Windows only store. So keep that in mind. Also,
why do you think that is? I mean, it seems that the Linux, especially the Linux community, with the Steam Deck coming out and Proton DB and everything like that, is as popular as it's ever been. That just seems like a very odd timing from Humble Bundle.
Yeah, I think they're not competing well, probably with like itch.io, which is more of a artist controlled marketplace. Here, I think they have much less control. It's not like they're really selling; they're just placing it on the marketplace. And there's a lot of other concerns when you start working with Linux, as far as support and whether things work. Most people running Linux, there may not have a good video driver. So they probably get a lot more returns of people complaining, saying, I put it on here and it didn't work because they don't truly understand it. I just think that I think that they just found it as it's not worth the time for the amount of sales they're probably doing. And remember, this got purchased. This got taken over by, who was it that took this over? It's one of the big, used to be websites. They took it over, and they've changed it a lot. It seems like they're just trying to come up with kind of a subscription game, or not a subscription, but a subscription that lets you get free games every month. Less of a way to discover new artists, and less of a kind of a cool thing. I think it was more of the original developers who liked the idea of Mac and having all these other things.
IGN bought it back in 2017.
Yeah, IGN. I just don't think they have any interest in it. They're not making money off of it. It's probably not worth their time. They're making money off of the other ones, and these are just more work to support. Windows is kind of the standard.
Yeah, very true. Interesting.
So, and they're saying here, because they're saying, first of all, Proton's compatibility layer, which essentially allows Windows games to run on Linux operating systems and reduces the burden on the individual developer. That may be part of the reasoning. If they can get Proton to work, you don't need a Linux build of it, right? As they start kind of going away from, because I think we're going to go to this more platform model of the games are just running, kind of like you don't need the encoder for your, what video you're playing. It's already probably there. They're going to create something that allows you to play that game. It's the decoder pretty much for your game. I just think they see the writing on the wall. If Proton can do it and it's near normal performance, the developers are going to stop putting out Linux clients. It will just
it's a very valid point.
It'll kind of like, I think it'll be kind of similar to some systems you see in the computer world where there's something that is the base program, and then you can do all kinds of cool things inside of it. And I think that's what Proton's probably going to be. I wasn't thinking that wasn't exactly my go-to. I was trying to avoid Java, but yes,
when you said a computer system or that things are on top of, all I can think of, Brian, I close my eyes and I see a white box with red text that says Java runs on 1 billion devices, DVD players, CD players, ATMs. I close my eyes, Brian. It's like an old plasma TV. It's burned into my eyes when I close them. The Java installer. I can't break
it. So I just think that the industry is kind of adapting. They're realizing there's a lot of technologies that they can't support on so many platforms. Ray tracing, and I mean, we're getting to a point where it's just they're hitting issues with the newest technology and getting it to run everywhere. And so I think it may not be Proton that ends up doing it. That's the one that they put out, but I bet you that's a good trigger to where maybe we'll start seeing other companies create this kind of a middleware. And they're creating an interface that connects to the middleware and lets you play a game, right? That would be the way to do it. They need to come up with a standard and get away from this multi-operating system thing. Create an interface that like games can connect to so they can do less programming and having to get it to work on various operating systems.
Well, and I think that's exactly Proton. I think that's exactly what Proton is doing. So interesting.
Yep. Yeah. So we'll see where that goes. One thing now for people that are worried about being tracked on the internet, researchers have found that people are starting to track you based on your graphics card. So
What?
your cookies, it totally ignores the cookies, and it's using your shader cores to actually track you on the
Oh,
internet.
interesting.
So because they're able to get pretty specific information, and then there must be some details in your shader core which are unique in a way, like however the information that allows you to access inside of the web. What I'm trying to remember what they call it, but inside of the web that's displaying it probably gives us information.
Yeah.
So
Huh.
they're turning around and saying, "Oh, well, we know that that's that unique machine because it has this unique thing in its shader. Like this identifier, maybe a model number, serial number. Something that somehow narrows it down enough." Yeah, and PH is saying maybe like a GUID. I'd have to look exactly what they said identifiers, and didn't give the exact.
Well, I'm sure that's
But
exactly
they're saying
yeah.
from like they are saying like raw traces from the study for two different Intel Gen 3 computers, and they do a thing, and it creates pretty much like a litmus test, and and it shows one has this specific type, so they're able to narrow down the computer based on the GPU. So they did show as they were kind of tracking it over time, they were starting to improve uh, its accuracy quite a bit. So who knows if that'll be something, because they're always looking, as the government's going to try to crack down probably on social media tracking you. That's been something lately. They're going to keep coming up with all these different things, and now they're going to have to come up with a way to make it so they can't see these details about your graphics card. It's always a
or you
chase.
go
But I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, or you go into your browser and disable your GPU acceleration. Or
Make
whatever
sure it doesn't allow
any.
the drawing inside of the browser window. You'd have to
Yeah.
cut all that stuff so the 3D was not capable in your browser.
Interesting.
And one final random one. This is pretty sad, but if you have kids, remind them. A 13-year-old girl was rescued after she met a man she met on Roblox. This was a 33-year-old man meeting a 13-year-old girl, and of course it was in Roblox. And this is where, for us,
Ugh.
I put tons of restrictions on what they can access, especially with chat on these type of games, because I remember, my generation was the first one that really had this kind of access where you were on the internet and people would sit there and try. I remember when I was 16 in 1996, 1995, men just constantly messaging me on the internet. It's been going on since then. Now they hide it a little bit more. And
this is a bizarre story. So he met her on February the 18th on Roblox, apparently. And on February 20th, this man drove 900 miles to Topeka, Kansas to pick her up, and then drove 900 miles back to Clayton County, Georgia. It just goes to show you how fucked up in the minds these individuals are that perpetuate this child abuse and things like that. What a sick fuck. That's but you bring up a very good point, Brian. As crazy as this might sound, this has been going on with various platforms on the internet for the last 25 years. I mean, I watch this YouTube channel. If you haven't watched it, I'd recommend you check it out. It's called DAP, Dads Against Predators. And it's these two guys from Ohio, and they do this similar thing. They do a Chris Hansen style thing. And it's bizarre to see on all of these weird messaging apps and Signal and Telegram where these predators are just luring, and there's of course no way to really track or trace this stuff because it's being done on, if you're doing it on WhatsApp, it's completely encrypted. So there's no way to get in between that. It's pretty wild. And as crazy as this sounds, Brian, there's hundreds of these things happening. And it's just not,
it's happening
it's just not being reported.
It's all over the place.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, and this happened recently. That case where there was that one of the top guys at Facebook that got busted.
Yeah.
Recently and was let go. It was through one of those similar type of things. One of these citizen groups doing an undercover sting, and they busted him.
Yeah.
Doing this. It's because the police, they'd be doing this all day. And if
Oh God,
This is something where
you wouldn't be able to hire enough police to bust these scumbags. There's so many of them. It's unbelievable.
because they do it. I mean, well, PH is pointing out in chat. It'll just turn around and look at Chris Hansen and look at the number. They had people coming constantly to this house.
15 minutes.
Every 15 minutes, they got people showing up to this house and they're arresting them. You know, just one thing I remember first getting on the internet and going into IRC. IRC back in the 90s was the wild west of the
I
internet.
can only imagine.
You would pull up the channel list and half of them were porn, at least, right? But then a quarter of those were child porn, openly labeled as child porn. You know, people could go in there and do whatever. I never entered one because that's definitely not where I'm interested in. But you know, just being I was a child at the time, you know, but I definitely didn't go in there then. You know, just imagine a 14, 15-year-old thinking, oh, this internet thing looks cool. You go into an IRC chat and it's just tons of child porn everywhere. And it went on like that for years. They didn't filter that out for years.
Oh, because there was nobody policing it. You know, it was as you mentioned, it was the Wild West. There was no idea how to prosecute any of this stuff.
How did you find them on the internet? All the tools, all the infrastructure wasn't set up for them for police departments to track someone and actually find where they're at. And it was just new. And I just remember that. I was just shocked. And then, you know, once I got on Yahoo Messenger, the amount of men that would sit there and start messaging you, oh, I'm 30, whatever. But it probably, you know, one time I was like, I have no interest in talking to you. Thank you. You know, but if that was happening then that blatantly, it's still, you know, I was a guy. Imagine, you know, preteen and young teenage girls. It's disgusting. Like this girl.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, she was found alive and safe.
Yes.
She was, funny enough, and the whole story's not funny, but funny enough, she was able to message her mother through Roblox on February the 24th to tell her, hey, this is where I am. I've been, and she gave the address of a store that she had visited. So Roblox was the platform that allowed it to happen in the first place, but also appears it was the platform that saved her life at the same time. So a very bizarre
There's
twist
only
there.
so many ways you can protect someone from something like this, because this is they've got to give you some freedom. It's an open platform. They got to let people communicate, but it's up to the parents. Be involved. Make sure that you are keeping track of who your kids are talking to, you know, and what they're doing on the internet. We just don't give them free open access to the internet.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, damn, a scary story, but fortunately a happy ending on this one.
Yes. All right. So let's go ahead and let's move on really quickly to Microsoft.
Sure. Microsoft.
Now, so they added the Twitch streaming back to Xbox. I don't think we mentioned that last week.
No.
So that's going to be, and it's on the main window because it's built in, I think, to the operating system, and you can see it on the dash. And then they also have the ability to stream from the console out to Twitch directly. So that's included now. So if you've been trying to go live or do any of that stuff with Twitch from your Xbox, it's not been working. You can link with the QR code to get it linked to your Twitch account and do all that from the screen without having to enter all your passwords and do a bunch of
why did it go away
to log in? I think because they were redoing the whole they were redoing some things on Xbox's side.
Oh, huh.
Yeah, and so it seems like they took it. Remember, they were doing a number of integrations, and I think they had redone some things. They took it out temporarily, fixed those things, and then re-implemented it.
Interesting.
And I remember at some point I did see an article that had more information, details, but it was that they were fixing something with the interface, and they re-implemented it when they got the features in it that they needed, because I think it wasn't working correctly before.
Gotcha.
So that's going to happen. And then the Xbox gaming, I've seen a lot of information coming out about the Xbox Cloud Gaming. We've been talking about the last couple of weeks, but they're going to be adding keyboard and mouse to that soon, which is really going to cover pretty much playing any game streamed through the app. Will either work like a computer or a console. Really, we're getting away from the console computer feeling because consoles now accept keyboard and mouse. You can hook a controller up to any computer. I feel like they're really finally edging out that separation between the two. And once they get it to where you're streaming everything, there will be nothing that really makes one different from the other.
Yeah.
It'll get away from this platform specific, which is kind of what we were hinting at earlier in the show, getting away from this platform specific version of gaming. We don't need to be running it on Steam. We don't need to be running it on Xbox. We don't need to, it's more like Netflix in a show. Which platform are you going to view it on or play it on, experience it on, right? I think that's where we're going. And here they're making it to where it's trying to make it a seamless experience to where it just feels like you're sitting down at a computer or a console and playing a game and it launches instantly. I'd encourage people that haven't tried the streaming yet, try it out because it feels just like Netflix. If you streamed and did things like 10 years ago plus, there was all the buffering and it just was not a smooth experience. You look at Netflix now, you go onto it, seamless. You click play, everything starts up immediately. There's not lag, buffer, any of that kind of waiting. They've got this about to that point, and I think it's just going to get better, especially as they start to implement technology. At some point, they'll probably have some sort of interface that connects to your video card directly, creates a direct connection between the video card and the internet. And they'll probably start optimizing hardware for online gaming. I think that's the next step. We haven't seen it yet, but there are things that they could do to make this have a more direct connection and maybe get feedback in more real time, through drivers and through hardware.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of excited to see that because this is just opening to everybody. There is some. Oh, we'll skip some of the Activision Blizzard because that's still the mess that it's been. I'm not really. There's not anything other than these action groups saying that they're upset. The gaming awards, there was a presenter that went up there and said "F Bobby Kotick." And that I just don't like it when it gets to that level. They're being at that point, it's purely politics that are driving what this guy is saying, right? Because he's incredibly left-wing liberal, and so he's against Blizzard because of what he feels like they've done. And so this is his job that he's at, and he goes and does something like this, and because the people like his political stance, they let it go. But if someone said the opposite view of that political stance, they would probably get fired. This is what I don't like. It's just I see so many. I mean, this is Kotaku, so it's like you only can say one version of things. Imagine if they said something pro-Trump or something more opposite of this, right?
Yeah,
they would be kicked off.
Yeah, he looks like an interesting character. So great.
Yeah. So I just get frustrated when it starts to. These little things that aren't meant to be in these shows are starting to bleed in because they want.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
They want to make it stand.
Okay, I didn't want to get into this, but I will now. It just so instead of actually coming up with anything, and the individual that said this is an individual by the name of Greg Miller, who is owns a website or operates a website called Kind of Funny Vids, which should tell you all you need to know about him. But again, instead of actually having a statement or instead of actually saying something that could actually change the industry or do something, see, this is what I can't stand about individuals like this scum, like Greg Miller, this douchebag, is instead of actually doing any advocacy or doing something else, you just get up stage and say, fuck Bobby Kotick. You're just a soy boy douchebag. Your statement doesn't change anything. You're pussy. Yep. You don't want to do anything about it, but it's cool to stand up on the big stage, Brian, and say it. I said it. But you're a wimp. You don't do anything. So shut up.
Well, and this would have been the opportunity to say, hey, I just want to say I think we should respect women in gaming. So if that's the stance, tell them, I want to lift up the developers that are respecting women, and then you could say, and F the developers that don't, right? But here he got nothing accomplished. All he did was say, F this CEO of a company. Okay. The guy's probably just doesn't like capitalism and all these other things. This is opportunity to really put the screws to him. So it's frustrating. These are the political activists that are using their jobs to promote politics when gaming is an escape from politics. It used to be. Now it seems like gaming is politics, and that's what's really frustrating. You see it everywhere.
We can't
and
talk
it's becoming
about
more and more real.
We love so much without also talking about the stories of abuse and harassment employees faced at Activision Blizzard and other companies. But since this is a formal event being broadcast to audiences across the world, I'm only going to say F Bobby Kotick. I'm just kidding. Fuck Bobby Kotick. You come on.
Whoa, wow, look how edgy I am. Let me go on my Twitter account that's verified and, post all the stuff to get propped up smoke blown up my ass by these other liberal elites. I mean, what a douchebag.
Other than him saying what I could seem like a joke to me, to his secretary, I'm going to kill you. That was the most they came up with, really, that he said. And this was to his secretary, just, I assume, joking around, because he wasn't actually threatening to kill her. But that was what they got out of Bobby. Other than that, they just don't like how he's run the company. And since the beginning,
I'll remind you that you might not like how he's run the company, but Activision Blizzard has had some of the most profitable quarters in the history of the company over the last couple of years. So again, and that's my whole thing, is you can stand up here and say fuck Bobby Kotick all you want, but if you're a shareholder of Activision Blizzard, you won't be saying that, because he's made you a whole hell of a lot of money over the past couple of years under his leadership of the company. But again, see, for these people, they don't have, Brian, they're dumb. Like, they're not intellectually capable of doing anything. So that's why, you can stand up in probably some cheap, shitty suit that you bought at Kohl's on the Game Awards stage and say, oh, fuck Bobby Kotick. But again, you would never dive into the actual issues. You would never look at the profitability of the company, because, for them, it doesn't matter. It's just all about the virtue signaling and the gaslighting, which is all this has been. He's laughing all the way to the bank. He's made a fortune because Activision Blizzard has made a fortune, and I'm sure he doesn't care what this soy boy douchebag Greg Miller has to say about him. By the way, I mean, this guy, just in case you were wondering, like, hey Nick, what does this guy look like? What is his thoughts? Well, here he is. This picture should tell you all you need to know about the guy that had the audacity to say the F word on the stage at the Game Awards. So just take that for what you will.
Yeah, and I think none of these people, from what I can tell, really even know what happened. What did he do to actually try to change the culture at the company? What firings happened, in response, and what decisions were made in the background? They don't know any of those things. They're just seeing that there was things bad that happened 10 years ago sometimes, and no one was fired at the time. Well, some of those things weren't brought up as an issue at the time, and so it's hard to fire someone at the time. But they take a picture 10 years later and they're like, look at these people, they should be fired, and shame on you for not firing them for this. Some things I think have been improvements, as far as, if this isn't a man's game, programming isn't a man's game, so you got to respect women in it. But I just think that they aren't even looking for the improvements and changes that were made in the company to try to fix this, because they don't care. They could make every change in the book, short of the one list of demands that they put on their website, which I'm sure this guy is, fully in support of, for those little groups that, have been posting on Twitter. They keep putting these demands. Unless you meet every single one of those demands, they'll say, you did not meet our demands. You did not do what we asked. You didn't meet 9 out of 10, but they'll say you did not meet what we asked. So I think they've realized there's no point in negotiating with these people, because they only want chaos, right? Correct. They only want, because I think it's part of another greater structure of things that are happening that aren't related to the actual gaming industry. So
agreed.
Well, we can end that there.
Yes.
So let's talk really quickly about Intel for a moment, because we've been talking about some chips, but
sure,
they've started working on. So Intel's been working with MIT to try to design some high resolution image scaling chips, because I think part of this is going to be, first of all, making things that are a smaller resolution and upscaling them. That's one way that they've been able to take, for instance, a 4K screen, make it an 8K screen as they start to come out with these, and have you not notice weird things in the resolution. That's been one big thing, because they do a lot of upscaling on a number of different type of devices. And they're talking about these being really small devices that fit in the palm of your hand. So this is something where possibly they could send you a really low resolution for like game streaming and things like that.
That's what I was going to say.
Mobile,
yeah.
And you want to display it to some sort of a screen or something. This would be the perfect way to do that, to where when it gets to your eyes, you want it high resolution, right? But it can't be a very big picture. But you try to make it clear. If you upscale it by any means, it still needs to look smooth. So if you take something that's meant to be in a little screens like this, and then you upscale them and put them on your TV, you're going to notice a lot of the details of something that went from maybe a small picture up to a big picture. So these type of technologies, I think, are on this. For instance, let's talk about this really quick. This credit card size device has been designed for researchers, and they said it consists of a reflector array with around 10,000 antennas designed to focus a beam of energy electronically with no moving parts. So it's going to be interesting. Because they used to say the antennas are very interesting because just by changing the time delays that are fed to each antenna, you can change the direction of the energy that's being focused. It's just, the technology is pretty cool. So how they're going to use it is up in the air. They talk about their roadmap, there's GPU roadmap and all this, but I think it still all kind of comes down to less from these big video cards, but making it to where you can take a regular size video and make it look good. And I think that's where we're going to use AI, because you're going to get to the point where things are too big. Things are too big to put on a disc or send over the internet. Once you get these huge worlds, you have to make things lower resolution, and then use AI maybe to fill in, or some sort of technology to fill in the details for you. So I think that they're still trying to figure out how are we going to handle some of these things. Now this one uses, they're using this to be able to do 3D spaces and do all kinds of cool technology with it. But yeah, they're making it to where they can just get all the detail out of these, get details from everything. And I think AI is going to be kind of the big way that they do that, with these, get these low resolutions, scan them in, and then bring them up. All right.
Very interesting.
And then also the roadmaps out there for 2024 for all of the Intel CPUs. More than welcome to check it out, because they have Intel 7, which is the Alder Lake and Raptor Lake, and then Meteor Lake and Arrow Lake, which is going to be 23 through 24, and then 24 beyond is going to be Lunar Lake, and then whatever else they come up with that. So I feel like people aren't getting the newest ones right now anyways because of all the shortages. So we'll see if this really changes, if this will eventually be to where people are getting CPUs and graphics cards again, because I feel like people really aren't doing it. So, all right. But we don't. There's some things with Russia, Ukraine. We really don't have time. Do you have a preference on talking about anything else, or you want to talk about any of those things?
No. Let's cover that a little bit. We had this on our notes since last week. Of course, we're not going to bore you on the whole conflict itself, but it's caused a couple of different issues on the, well, not issues, but it's created some different conversations on the tech and gaming side. And in some games, a lot of this is a little bit nothing more than posturing. For example, DICE disabled Battlefield 2042's Russian attack helicopter weekly mission reward. Now, I understand the idea behind this, Brian. Don't get me wrong, but it does not do anything. It's just a meaningless gesture. Yeah. So I'm all for trying to do something. What I'm not for is meaningless gestures to try and win yourself some social justice points. But that's what they're doing.
One thing I saw Rust did. Rust is up there. So people that are paying in Russia, rubles currency,
yes,
they're adding in an extra charge to it and then donating that to the Ukraine.
Interesting. Yeah. So there's something you can actually do to do something. PH and Falcon are talking about Tarkov. It is interesting to note that a lot of Tarkov's economy is based on the ruble, and that economy has essentially vanished in the last 14 days since that invasion began. Stalker 2, the development of that has paused. I believe they are a Ukrainian studio. Yes, they're based in Kyiv, the capital of course, of Ukraine. And they have temporarily suspended the development of Stalker 2, of course, as they're saying they're trying to literally stay alive. And the idea of trying to produce a video game while your country is getting invaded by an adversary is probably not the coolest thing in the world. So interesting to see.
And this is happening to a number, because you'd be surprised. I talked a little bit, Raid Shadow Legends. I play that game on my phone. That one, their headquarters are based out of the Ukraine. And so they're currently working on 1/3 staff that they have gotten to another location while the others are getting their families out and dealing with all that. The game's still going, but I was wondering, is this game going to disappear? Is it going to be to where there's going to be issues? I haven't really seen a bunch of issues, with these games happening on the internet, but I went and looked a little bit today, and Tarkov seems to still be up. These games are still going. I thought they cut some of the internet access to Russia off, but then they said that they weren't going to, but certain services are cutting things off.
Yeah,
it's going to be odd because you can't do credit card transactions. So there's got to be so much weird, messed up stuff between Russia and us that we don't even realize are happening right now.
Well, that was going to be my point. A lot of what you're seeing, like Netflix and Spotify and all, this is a lot of Western companies that are shutting off service in Russia. You mentioned Visa, MasterCard, and Amex, I think. All no doing payments, no Apple Pay, no Google Pay.
Well, and they switched to China's payment system. So Russia now uses China's credit card system.
Interesting.
So China is now providing them with one that they use in their country, and so that has replaced the whole American Express Visa.
Yeah, but nevertheless, I mean, you still, I'm sure there are plenty of people.
That's a lot to implement. You have to sit there and roll out all new hardware, unless they, who knows what infrastructure. Yeah. Just imagine all the turmoil going on in Russia right now for the average citizen. Because
for the average
citizen, the average citizen is not really supportive of this.
They're not. They're protesting. They're getting thrown in jail from what I was reading this afternoon. So,
but you got to think they're the ones being affected, and that's kind of the goal of them doing all of these sanctions and everything else, is to impact the citizens so that they say knock it off. Well, will that be effective? Putin doesn't seem to really care. I don't think. We'll see.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of statements from various companies, and we're not going to get into all of it. We do have them on our website. But I just don't.
One thing, DICE, they removed the Russian attack helicopter weekly mission.
Yeah, that's what
Probably
I mentioned.
Because they didn't want people getting videos, right, of that and clipping things together. I think a lot of these, they don't want to have Russians attacking anybody or having a game where it's a Russian attacking people, because people will go on the internet, make videos, and people get upset.
Yeah, agreed.
But we do have more. CD Projekt Red, 11-Bit Studios, Bungie, Stalker. We talked about them. Just a bunch of them I didn't even put in here. All doing things, not selling games there, charging more for games there, and then donating the rest. So we'll see over the next couple weeks. There was one video. I don't know if you want to play this really quick. The Lights Camera War. This is from Stalker. This is a video that they released after kind of talking about it. They talk about developing a game, and then they start talking about what's happening in the Ukraine. Might be interesting. It's a minute something.
Yeah, minute 30. So yeah, let's take a look.
So they said that 1 week ago they were going through and making this video to prepare to show people. And then on the 24th of February, Russia declared war on Ukraine and sent rockets, tanks, and soldiers. The country's support for the fight for their existence. And it seems like this is the price of freedom, where you can see. So they're showing some videos of.
This Stalker released this?
Yes.
Wow. That's pretty damning.
So.
Wow.
They said the game development has shifted to the sidelines. They said, but we will definitely continue. So it says after the victory. It's odd how they didn't do
Glory to Ukraine.
Glory to Ukraine. So that's a video they released, kind of what's going on. So
I guess so.
I was surprised how many developers are based out of the Ukraine. There's a lot of software developers.
Yeah, there's a lot of high tech stuff going on. I was talking to a guy here who runs a software company, and he's got some of his developers in Ukraine. So I've been chatting with one of them over the past couple of days, back and forth on Twitter, and it's been very, very interesting. So, yeah, cool stuff.
Yep. All right, very good. Well, we've got some small things we can cover, but I think that's all the main stuff. So you want me to give my contact information?
Yeah, let's roll out.
All right. So if you want to get me, it's at Brian Aldridge on Gab, Parler, Getter, and whatever else comes along, I'm sure. My blog is biteoftech.com. But of course, I encourage you to go to our website, infectionpodcast.com. Go check out the right-hand side and join our server on Discord. We've got 9 or 10 ARC servers going. A lot of places for people to chat and hang out. There's a link. Maybe there's a topic that we're not covering. Maybe there's a game or whatever it is that you think we should be covering. Just jump into the news channel, put a link to it, and we'll review that before the live show. If you want to support the show, you do that through Subscribe we've got, and Amazon Prime. A lot of ways that you can do that, and that's really adding up throughout the show. I don't know. I skipped all the podcast stuff. But if you want to support us, that's been really helpful. Someday maybe we'll meet together in person, and we'll actually get to where we have a convention at some point. But I'm waiting for that. We'll see. Finally, we had yesterday at my hockey game, I didn't have to wear a mask.
Oh, thank God.
The first time since I started playing ice hockey that we didn't have to skate with a mask. So.
I haven't worn a mask I couldn't even tell you how long.
Well, I don't generally wear them. I only wore them because it was a city facility where our rink is. So I had to put on a mask to walk into the facility. And then I had to have some other thing on my hockey helmet that protected spit from going out or whatever. It's all this stupid stuff. So now I actually get to play and I don't have to breathe in all my old oxygen. So.
Yeah, great. Well, now hopefully, now you can actually breathe like the human body is supposed to. Well, Brian, well, speaking of support, I want to thank our friend Falcon for hitting us up with the 35-month resubscription here on Twitch. Falcon, thank you very much. It is greatly appreciated. Brian, appreciate you as always. And by the way, we will be live next Wednesday. So we are off next Tuesday, and we will be live on March the 16th. That is our next live show, moving the Tuesday show to a Wednesday. So we will see you in 8 days. Brian, thank you as always, and we'll catch up with you next week, all right?
All right. Talk to you soon.
If you want to check out some of my daily political antics, you can visit my website, nickcraig.com. I do 3 hours of local talk radio each and every weekday morning. Of course, if you missed any episode or any portion of this episode, recommend you check out our website, infectionpodcast.com. You'll find links to all those different articles and stories that we talked about. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next Wednesday.